Hey everyone, and welcome. Let's start with a question. What if the very best guide to healthy eating isn't some new scientific study, but the lost wisdom hiding in our own cultures?
All right, so let's just dive right in with this. I'm sure a lot of us grew up with advice that sounded, well, a little like this. It's loving, it's well-intentioned, but it is totally and completely confusing. This quote from Jonathan Safran Foer's grandmother, it just perfectly captures the mixed signals that surround food, and it really sets the stage for the chaos of modern eating. And all that chaos, well, it leads us straight into our first section. We're going to try to navigate what you could call the modern food maze.
I mean, have you ever felt that dietary whiplash? One day fat is good, the next it's terrible. Carbs are essential. No, wait, carbs are the enemy. If that sounds familiar, trust me, you are not alone. We are constantly bombarded with contradictory information, and it makes it almost impossible to figure out what we should actually be eating. And this is where things get really interesting. You see, there's a huge conflict right at the heart of our official food advice. The USDA, the very same agency, has two jobs. One is to tell us how to be healthy, the other is to promote the gigantic food industry. You can probably see how that might be a little bit of a tricky balancing act.
On top of that, our whole scientific approach can make things even more complicated. We get obsessed with single nutrients, right? The heroes and villains of our food, vitamin C, omega-3s, trans fats. But we completely miss the bigger picture. As nutritionist Joan Gusso so brilliantly put it, we've forgotten that real nutrition comes from the whole mix of foods, what we used to just call a diet.
So, if our modern way is so confusing, what's the alternative? Let's take a step back before all the nutrition science to a time when, well, we just ate together.
This little story from Penn Vogler's book just hits so hard. It perfectly illustrates this massive cultural shift. The shared family meal used to be this cornerstone of life, and now it's just kind of vanished, replaced by eating alone in different corners of the house. But it definitely wasn't always like this. In her incredible book, the legendary chef Edna Lewis paints this beautiful picture of life in Freetown, Virginia. There, food was literally the glue that held the community together. Everything was tied to the seasons, to the land, and, most importantly, to each other. So you can see the contrast, right? It is stark. We've basically traded the ritual and the connection of a shared table for the speed and efficiency of just fueling up, alone. And in that trade, we've lost way more than just a dinner companion. We've lost a huge piece of our culture. And as farmer James Rebanks points out, this change didn't just affect our dinner tables. As we disconnected from how we ate, we also disconnected from the land itself. We traded these beautiful, diverse landscapes for what he calls sterile, efficient monocultures, just endless fields of a single crop.
Okay, so if people weren't counting calories and vitamins, what was guiding them? This brings us to these surprisingly powerful, unwritten rules that used to shape how and when we ate. And here is a really provocative thought for you. What if all those simple, old-fashioned rules about how we eat aren't just quaint little customs? What if they're actually sophisticated, time-tested technologies designed to keep us healthy? I mean, just think about these 4 simple rules. You see them in cultures all over the world. They have nothing to do with what you're eating and everything to do with how you're eating it. Each one naturally makes you more mindful and slows you down, which gives your body's I'm full signals a chance to actually kick in and do their job. This is really all part of what you could call a food tradition, and it's so much more than a collection of recipes. Think of it like a complete operating system, something that's been refined for centuries that teaches us how to live and eat and stay healthy in a particular place on Earth. And this is such a brilliant example of that wisdom in action. Long before we had labs, cultures all over the world figured out how to create complete nutrition just by pairing certain foods together, like grains and legumes. These combinations aren't just recipes. They are powerful nutritional technology, perfected over thousands of years. But following these traditions, well, it goes way beyond just personal health. These choices have surprisingly big ripple effects, which brings us to what we might call the politics of the kitchen. Now, I know that sounds a little dramatic, right? But it's true. This simple everyday act of deciding to cook your own meal from scratch is a powerful vote for a completely different kind of food system. See, when you cook, you're automatically choosing real, whole ingredients instead of hyper-processed products.
You're taking a small step away from this massive industrial complex. And in doing that, you're restoring a bit of dignity to the whole food chain, from the soil all the way to the farm workers, who are so often the most forgotten part of the entire system.
And this is so crucial. As Francis Moore Lappe pointed out decades ago, our food problems aren't just about a lack of calories. The real issue is the economic and political systems that decide who gets to eat and how that food is made. Cooking is one small but powerful way to take back a little bit of that control.
So let's bring all this home. What does embracing these old rules and this way of thinking actually mean for us, right here, right now?
Ultimately, it comes down to pleasure and connection. I think this description of Edna Lewis's cooking by Alice Waters just says it all. Reclaiming our food traditions is about rediscovering food that actually tastes like itself, food that connects us to a real place and a specific moment in time. And that really leaves us with a final thought. Instead of chasing the next big diet fad, maybe the most powerful thing we can do for our health is to simply look back. The real takeaway here might be that the best advice isn't in a lab, it's in our own heritage. So what's a piece of wisdom from your own family, from your culture, that's just waiting to be brought back to the table?